Crazy.
Who do you trust?
What would you say is the biggest difference as far as like the hip hop scene here and down there?
It's the fucking same. They don't support like
No.
You know, man. Let me just say, man. Like, you know, Houston is you know, it was at one point in time a melting pot. Like you had like, you know, a bunch of, you know, different styles that were coming in. I mean, I always tell this story because they automatically assume I'm from the East Coast already, right, just because of how I've been my entire life.
Okay.
Like, you know, and I have to explain to them like, well, yo, I was a Crush Groove kid. Like, I grew up in the '80s. Like, you know, I went to the Fresh Fest. Like,
right,
we didn't have Southern music, you know, at the time that I was, you know, 8, 9,
really
10 years old.
Yeah.
You didn't really have that first wave until the Ghetto Boys hit, and even then they weren't like your typical Southern sounding.
And you're a teenager pretty much by then.
Well, I'm not that old.
No.
Well, yeah, you're right. No, I was young teen by the time 87. Yeah, by the time they hit 88. Yeah. But then when that initial like first wave of down south music came, like the UGKs and you know everybody was kind of on that, and then, like before the Paul Walls and the Chameleonaires and all of that, like you really had a very structured sound that started to come out of there. Like UGK really broke it wide open for everybody. As soon as they heard like Pimp C's voice, everybody in the H was like, yo, like that was it. But you know, for a kid like me, by that time, you're talking like I had already, that's like 94, 95, 96 area. I had already been listening to the EPMDs and then the Redmans and then the Nas's are starting to come up. So my focus was here, not so much towards the South. So I never developed the draw. I was never like, man, coming down, baby. Like it was never me, man.
Because I almost feel like you got to do it on purpose.
I do.
Yeah.
It was so funny. Like I would go back home and talk, and I'd be in circles of like local rappers, and it was so funny because they always be like, don't worry, man, Zilla from that East Coast, man. he on that he that East Coast style, and I was like, I get it, like. That's
I mean, but you spent time in New York growing up, right?
Yeah, well, you know, when I first started doing music and touring, I spent time like you know, and really hitting cities. I mean, I spent time overseas and doing all kinds of just crazy stuff. But I think it was developing that ear, man. Like it's almost like when you're a kid. I always use it as an example. I mean, you take a white kid and he grows up in a black neighborhood. How do you think he's going to speak? Like,
right.
It's only evident that that's how he's going to be. You start to become a product of your environment. And I think that I was so like embedded in the hip hop at that time that everything had to be like a yo or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying? You just start taking these characteristics. You listen to enough of anybody and you're going to start developing.
You're going to pick it up. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's coding. Like you're learning how to code like what you're around. But you got to be careful that, you know, you don't just start coding for everything, you know what I'm saying?